My name is Marina-Theodora and I'm a PhD student at the University of Bucharest. My presentation is titled Reshaping the Past and Rethinking the Present, the Archival Revolution in Romania. Nowadays, the archives represent one of the greatest treasures that a country has. Not only it is the institution that safeguards its past, but it also allows each individual to know where they came from. Not too long ago, the situation was completely different in all of the former communist states. During the dictatorial regimes, the legislation would not allow for the recent history to be researched so easily. Sure, there were some loopholes, but those wouldn't apply to any researcher or to anyone who would want to learn about his own past, let's say. In 1971, a new law of the archives has been passed. It would state that the documents from the National Archival Fund would be researched after 30 years. 4 years after this law, a special archive fund has been created. The documents from this fund were especially concerning Romania's frontiers and the relations with its neighbors. Another important part was represented by the documents that concerned the activity of the underground communist movement, which was especially important, and very few people could research this topic. That being said, this fund had a really limited access because its document had a special value, as I said. In order for a researcher to be able to see documents from it, they had to have a particular recommendation from the institution where they were working. Moreover, the content of the documents would have had to be verified beforehand by the head of the general direction. This was a way of making sure that no researcher could find information that could somehow be used in order to harm the state's interests. Of course, after the fall of the communism, things started to change, but in a different time span from a country to another. Sure, the change was inherent to a new democratic regime, but what made the biggest difference when it came to the historical research was what remained known as the archival revolution. The new political regime brought a change in historical paradigm, especially because many documents would see the light of day after from this time on. Also, the political bias would disappear for most of the new historians. This would later lead to a new field of historical studies in Romania, Hungary, and East Germany that would focus on the history of the secret police and their mechanisms. Clearly, a researcher would not even think to talk about the structure of the secret police or even its victims during a communist regime. Moreover, researchers would become more and more interested in studying the communist parties and how they really took over the political power when it seemed almost impossible. In Romania, no one would ever have guessed in the interwar period that the Communist Party could ever be legal again, let alone that it could have ever rule over a country. Nevertheless, the change happened at a different pace. In Romania, it took longer than in most countries for this archival revolution to happen. The process started in 2006, when there was a change in the management of the National Archives of Romania, due to which Dorin Dobrincu became the new director of the institution. An important document that led to this grand change was the final report, Raportul Final, on Romania communism, presented by the Presidential Commission for the Study of the Communist Dictatorship in Romania, also known as the Tismăneanu Commission, Comisia Tismăneanu. Instituted by the President Traian Băsescu, its main goal was the condemnation of the communist regime and of the institution that helped to its enforcement. Romania would then be the third country, right after the Czech Republic and Bulgaria, to be able to take this highly important step. The condemnation of the communist regime was not its only purpose, of the document I mean. It also served as the long-awaited liberalization of the archival access. This was particularly important for the study of the Romanian Communist Party. Before 1989, we only knew the party's rhetoric regarding its own history and its members. Sure, after the change of regime, things were a bit more transparent, but not nearly enough. Researchers could see certain archival found before, but they could not take pictures of the documents. You were not even allowed to bring a laptop with you. You could only see the documents and take notes. This change has taken place so slow in Romania for two main reasons, as Dorin Dobrincu himself explained in an interview. Firstly, the only one that could even think of researching the communist parties were the ones that were allowed. Therefore, everything that they would write would be in a way that would fit the main rhetoric of the party. Take, for instance, the strikes from Grivița. They represented Gheorghe Gheorghiu's legitimization as of his revolutionary past. This meant that he would have had to be portrayed as a hero of the masses. But actually, his involvement in the events was highly overrated by the literature during the regimes, and actually, he was arrested even before the strikes started. So technically, he did not participate to the strikes of Grivița. On the other hand, there was a shift after 1989, and historians that researched the interwar period of even different areas started to show interest in the Communist Party. This couldn't have happened overnight, therefore it took a while for them to specialize in this field after. Secondly, even if they wanted to study it more closely and faster, it would be quite difficult since the access to the primary sources was so limited and selective. Practically, it took 15 years for some archives holders to transfer the documents to the National Archives of Romania or to the National Council for the Studies of Securitate's archives. Well, this change did not have an impact only on the historical research. It also had an important impact on ordinary people, because nowadays we can all go to the archives and learn about our past. And when I say our past, I don't mean our past collectively, but our past individuals and the past of our families. We can now research our family members. We can see our own files from CNSAS. This liberalization would come hand in hand with a new study in the psychology department. This study is called psychogenealogy, that would help people who suffer from mental illnesses that are hereditary. A historian can look at your past, your family's past, and work with a psychologist and show you that you're not alone in this. It's not your fault, and it's actually hereditary, unfortunately. Also, nowadays people can repossess their lands that were taken by the communist regimes after 1984. Thank you so much.